I am sensing that the people of Milford are ready for a political revolution. Well, thank you all very much for coming out. Let me thank Bad Larry's for their music. Let me thank Andrew Volinsky, your next governor, for his remarks. And let me thank somebody. I don't know how many of you know the work that Sean King does. Some of you I know do, and many of you don't. But when we talk about the need to reform a racist and broken criminal justice system, at the lead of that movement for many, many years has been Sean. And I just want to thank him for all the work that he does. And for his support in this campaign. And needless to say, I want to thank my soulmate of the last 40 years. You know, I'm Mr. Sentimental here. But Jane and I have been married for 31 years. We have 4 beautiful kids. And even more importantly, we have 7 very beautiful grandchildren. And Jane and I have worked together from way back when, and here we are tonight. And where we are is at an unprecedented moment in American history. And I'm very proud to tell you that last night in Iowa, we received more votes on the first and second round than any other candidate. Now that is with 62% of the vote, and for some reason in Iowa, they're having a little bit of trouble counting votes. But I am confident that here in New Hampshire, I know they'll be able to count your votes on election night. And when you count those votes, I look forward to winning here in New Hampshire. But I do want to take this opportunity, just having flown back from Iowa, to thank our grassroots supporters. Just as the case here in New Hampshire, they have knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors, and that is how you win elections. So to our friends in Iowa, thank you. And to the extraordinary volunteer team we have here in New Hampshire, thank you. That's why we're going to win here. Tomorrow, I fly back to Washington to cast a vote for the impeachment of Donald J. Trump. And I do that without any joy in my heart. This is not a happy moment for anybody, no matter what your political views may be. But the truth is, if the Senate does not vote to impeach Trump, and I do not believe the Senate will vote to impeach Trump, what it will set is a precedent for future presidents to the end of time. And what that precedent is that if you're president of the United States, you are above the law. If you are president of the United States, you can obstruct Congress when Congress exercises its constitutional responsibility of oversight. You don't have to pay any attention to Congress. So I personally believe we have a president who is not only a pathological liar, not only a racist and a sexist, and a homophobe and a xenophobe and a religious bigot. But he is also somebody who does not understand what democracy and the Constitution of the United States are all about. So tomorrow, the votes may not be there to impeach Trump, but I am absolutely confident that in November, the votes will be there to defeat Donald Trump. And with your help, next Tuesday, we begin and continue the process of winning here in New Hampshire, going on to Nevada, going on to South Carolina, going on to California, to win those states, become the Democratic nominee, and have the privilege together of defeating the most dangerous president in the modern history of America. And I will tell you why we are going to defeat Trump. We're going to defeat Trump because Trump believes that his political future lies in dividing the American people up based on the color of our skin or where we were born or our religion or our sexual orientation or even our gender. That's what he believes. Well, we got bad news for him, because that is not what the American people believe. And what this campaign is about, and what our administration will be about, is bringing our people together. Black and white and Latino, Native American and Asian American, gay and straight, we're going to come together around an agenda that works for all of us, not just billionaires and wealthy campaign contributors. We are going to win this election because the American people understand that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society, you do not give tax breaks to billionaires and cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And what the American people understand is that if you work 40 hours a week in New Hampshire or Vermont or any place else, you should not live in poverty. And that is why together we're going to end the absurdity of millions of our people trying to get by on 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour. You can't do that. We're going to raise the federal minimum wage to 15 bucks an hour. And in America, women should not be making 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. Not a radical idea to say equal pay for equal work. And I am very proud in this campaign of having the support of some of the great trade unions in this country. And the reason for that is I believe in the trade union movement. We are going to make it easier for workers to join unions so they can engage in collective bargaining and earn a living wage. And we believe that when you talk about a sensible agenda for the American people, you must look at education. Now, what our campaign is about is asking people to think outside of the box. Think outside what the options that TV gives you or what the Congress talks about. Ask yourself a simple question. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Why do we have a child care system which is dysfunctional? Why are we not able to attract the best and the brightest to become teachers? Why do we not make sure that all of our people, regardless of income, have the opportunity to get a higher education? That is the question. That is the question. Let me give you the answer. The answer is that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, our administration will bring forth universal, high-quality child care for all families. Our administration will invest heavily in low-income Title I schools so that all kids, regardless of their zip code, get the quality education they deserve. And our administration believes that all of our people have the right to get a higher education, either college or trade school, regardless of their income, which is why we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition-free. How many people here are dealing with student debt? Please raise your hand. Well, you know what we're going to do? If Congress, under Donald Trump, could give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% in large corporations, we are going to cancel all student debt in America. And we're going to do that with a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. You know, some of you may remember that 11 years ago, the crooks on Wall Street nearly destroyed our economy. We bailed them out. Now it is their time to bail out the working families of America. And let me tell you something else. An issue that I have been working on for a long time, and an issue that presidents of the United States have been talking about for over 100 years. And that is the understanding that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And that is to understand that today in America, we are spending twice as much per person on health care as do the people of Canada or any other major country. We're spending $11,000 for every man, woman, and child. You would think with all of that money, we'd have the greatest health care system in the world, right? Everybody goes to the doctor whenever you want. You don't have to worry about it. That's not the case. We are spending a fortune, and yet 87 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. 30,000 Americans die each year because they can't get to a doctor when they should. And 500,000 people go bankrupt. Now, I want you to put that into your heads. 500,000 people go bankrupt because of medically related bills. Can you believe, just stop and think about the cruelty of a system in which we spend far more per person than any other country, and yet somebody gets diagnosed with cancer, and they got to spend all of their energy thinking, how do I get well? What doctor would I go to? What hospital will I go to? What kind of treatment do I get? That's what they should be worrying about, and then they got to worry about the possibility of financial ruin for their families because they end up with a $100,000 bill that they cannot afford to pay. That should not be happening in America, and under our administration, that will not be happening in America. And I'll tell you something else, something that the people of New Hampshire are more than familiar with, and that is not only the greed, but the corruption of the pharmaceutical industry. You have an industry out there which last year the top 6 companies made over $60 billion in profit, while they charge us by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Last year, I took a trip to Canada with some people in the Midwest who are diabetic. Anybody here diabetic? All right. People who are diabetic need insulin. That's what keeps them alive. We went to Windsor, Ontario to buy insulin. People paid 1/10 of the price. 10% of the price for insulin in Canada, same company, same product as they're paying in the United States of America. That is highway robbery, and that is greed of the worst kind. And it turns out that in terms of insulin, like a quarter of the people who are dealing with diabetes ration their insulin, which is a dangerous thing to do, and share it. So today, we're going to make a statement very clearly to the drug companies. Under our administration, you will not continue to rip off the American people. And I know, all over the country, we are experiencing an opioid epidemic. And I know that epidemic has hit Vermont badly. It has hit your state even worse. And know this, that the opioid manufacturers understood that what they were promoting was addictive and was killing people. And you know what they did when they learned that? They hired more salespersons to sell more product, to cause more addiction, to kill more people. That is criminal, and we will address that in the White House. And when we talk about Medicare for all, I want you all to know what it means, because you're going to see a lot of lies on TV commercials, because we're taking on one of the most powerful industries in the country. That is the healthcare industry that last year made $100 billion in profit. This is what Medicare for all means. And it's not a radical idea, because in one form or another, it exists in every other major country on earth. On the Medicare for all, no more premiums. Not for you, not for your employer. On the Medicare for all, no more co-payments. Too many people don't have the $50 or the $100 they need to get into the doctor's office because of that co-payment. And under Medicare for all, we are going to end one of the most absurd concepts that I have ever heard. We take it for granted, but it is crazy. And that is the concept of the deductible. When you spend a fortune for health care, you assume that you can go to the doctor when you want. But in this country, there are many people right here tonight who have $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 deductibles. All right? We end all deductibles. On the Medicare for all, because we're going to lower the cost of prescription drugs, nobody will have to pay more than $200 a year for the medicine they need. On the Medicare for all, we expand Medicare, which is a good program today, but it needs improvement. On the Medicare for all, dental care becomes part of health care. Hearing aids becomes part of health care. Eyeglasses, And I'll tell you what else. Under Medicare for All, home health care is covered by Medicare. So for over 100 years, going back to Teddy Roosevelt, going back to FDR in the 30s and the 40s, going back to Harry Truman, JFK, Lyndon Johnson, Jimmy Carter, even Richard Nixon, Obama, people have been talking about health care for all. What we will do in the first week of our administration is introduce Medicare for all legislation, and we will finally, after 100 years of talk, pass legislation that guarantees health care to all of our people. And I want to say a word about another issue that simply cannot be, as we say in Vermont, till the cows come home, but we're not going to waste any time on Trump. But this is what I will say. Trump is not only a danger to this country, he is a danger to the entire world. And he is a danger to the entire world because he thinks that climate change is a hoax. Well, I have some very bad news for Donald Trump. Climate change is not a hoax. It is an existential threat to our country and, in fact, the entire world. Now, here is, you ready for a radical idea? I don't want those who are standing to collapse. All right, here it comes, guys. Radical idea. Our administration will believe in science. I know that's a radical idea, but hey, all right. Now, what does that mean? What it means, and I mean this with utmost seriousness and fear, what the scientists are telling us today is they have underestimated the degree and severity in which climate change is wreaking havoc on our country and the entire world. They have underestimated the speed in which the polar ice caps are melting and the oceans are warming and the seas are rising, which means if we don't get our act together, major cities in the United States like Miami, New Orleans, Charleston, New York City, by the end of the century will be partially or completely underwater. Countries like China, Indonesia, Pakistan, low-level countries will be inundated as well. Furthermore, what they are telling us is that the extreme weather disturbances we are seeing will become more frequent and will become worse. They're telling us the drought that we are seeing. Anyone turns on the TV and you see what's going on in Australia right now, if we as a planet do not get our act together, that will become the norm. Uncontrollable, extreme fires. I was in California to a town called Paradise, California. Some of you remember Paradise, California? I was there. And months after that terrible fire, you could see the cars burnt out. Many of their buildings, almost most of the buildings in that small town were destroyed. 86 people died. That's what extreme drought does. But it's not only that. We're talking about the acidification of the oceans where people all over the world get fish from to fill their protein needs. We're talking about the spread of disease because bacteria thrives in hot weather. What the United Nations tells us as a result of climate change, we are looking at up to 200 million climate refugees by the end of the century, people who cannot live in their own communities because there is no water, there's no land to grow their food. And that causes the danger of wars. So we have a very serious crisis. What makes it more complicated is that it's not just an American issue, it is a global issue. All right? So I am proud to tell you that while I've been criticized very frequently for it, I am proud to tell you that we have introduced the most comprehensive and bold climate change legislation ever introduced by any candidate running for president. It is based on the principles of the Green New Deal. And essentially what it does, as fast as we humanly can, is to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energies. And when we do that, we can create up to 20 million good-paying union jobs. And I'll tell you what else, because this is a global issue. As president, unlike Trump, I will not ignore the issue or even exacerbate it, which is what he is doing. What I will do is reach out to the people of this planet, the people in China and in Russia and in India and Pakistan, Brazil, countries all over the world, and make the case that maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. Bottom line here is we have, and I speak as the grandfather of 7 beautiful kids, we have a moral responsibility to make sure that we leave this planet to our children, grandchildren, and future generations in a way that is healthy and is habitable. And when we talk about an agenda that meets the needs of the American people, very high up on our list of priorities must be the need for fundamental reform of a broken and racist criminal justice system. I want you again to think outside of the box, to ask yourselves kind of simple questions. How does it happen that in the wealthiest country on earth, we have more people tonight in jail than any other country on earth, including communist China, 4 times our size, a nation that does not tolerate dissent very well. We have more people in jail than China does, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. What our administration will be about is investing in our young people, in jobs and education, not more jails and more incarceration. Some of you may not know this. Some of you may not know this, that tonight about 400,000 Americans are behind bars without having been convicted of a crime. You know why? That's right. The reason is that these people have been arrested, they've been charged with a crime, they've been put in jail, they cannot afford the $500 or the $1,000 they need to get out of jail. We are going to end cash bail in America. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. Corporations should not be making huge profits by locking up fellow Americans. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do, which is long, long overdue. We are going to end the war on drugs. Now, as you all know, there are some things that a president can do with an executive order. Some things, major things, you need legislation. But one thing you can do with an executive order, and I will do it on my first day in the White House, is make marijuana legal in every state in this country. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you all a question. How many folks here know of somebody who was arrested for possession of marijuana? Raise your hand. Well, it's the war on drugs, all right? You know it, right? Okay. What we will do, because when you have an arrest record, it makes it harder for you to go out and get a job, maybe get a house. It impacts your whole life. It ain't good to have a criminal record. We're going to expunge the records of all those who are arrested for marijuana. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do on that issue. And this was not an idea that really came to me. I got this from a lot of my African American and Latino friends. You drive in Las Vegas and you see a lot of these big signs, buy marijuana from this or that group. It's legal there. And you stop and you think that if we leave things the way they might normally go, you'll have a handful of corporations controlling marijuana when it is legal in 50 states. And you think for a moment about all those people whose lives were destroyed or really hurt by being arrested for possession of marijuana. Some went to jail. So what I think what we should do is make it easier for those people who have been impacted by the war on drugs to start making money through the legalization of marijuana. There's another issue that impacts all of us. It's important to me because my father came to this country at the age of 17 from Poland without a nickel in his pocket, couldn't speak a word of English, had very little education where he grew up. Never made any money, but he was so proud to be an American. And right now, you got a president of the United States who almost every single day demonizes undocumented immigrants. So we are going to end the demonization of the undocumented in this country. And on a very busy day one, we are going to reestablish legal status for the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. Under our administration, federal agents will no longer be snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. And under our administration, we will succeed in passing comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. Every person, regardless of his or her politics, recoils in pain and disgust when we turn on the TV and see another mass shooting. And all of us know the toll in America that gun violence has had. Under our administration, it will be the American people who write gun safety legislation, not the NRA. Universal background checks, ending the gun show loophole, and ending the sale and distribution of assault weapons in America. That's what we've got to do. I am a U.S. Senator, and I often hear my colleagues, Republican, conservative colleagues, on the floor of the Senate talking about how they believe in small government and getting government off the backs of the American people. And I say to those hypocrites, if you believe in getting the government off of the backs of the American people, understand that it is women who have the right to control their own bodies, not politicians. Let me just conclude by saying this. This is an unprecedented moment in American history. It is absolutely imperative that Trump be defeated. And I believe, for a variety of reasons, our campaign is the campaign that can and will defeat Trump. But our job is not just to defeat Trump. Our job is to have the courage, and this is not easy stuff, to have the courage to take on the powerful special interests that today dominate the economic and political life of this country. That ain't easy stuff because these guys have incredible power. I'm talking about Wall Street, talking about the insurance companies, talking about the drug companies, talking about the fossil fuel industry, talking about the military-industrial complex, talking about the prison industrial complex, and talking about the whole damn 1%. So, brothers and sisters, I am here tonight to ask for your support a week from tonight, Tuesday night. In the first, New Hampshire goes first in terms of primaries. You're first. Whole country will be watching. And a week from tonight, New Hampshire has the opportunity to tell not only this nation, but the entire world that we together will stand for justice, for compassion, and for truth, not greed, not lying, not divisiveness. So a week from tonight, I'm asking you to please come out and vote. Bring your friends, your co-workers, your family members. Let us win here in New Hampshire. Let us then go on to Nevada, South Carolina, California. Let us create the political revolution this country needs. Let us defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of America. Thank you all very much.